Michael, can I put it to you first of all, the aviation landscape, how bleak is it?
I think it's actually remarkably optimistic at the moment, Ciara. The vaccines are coming. The UK will have vaccinated half their population by the end of March. Europe and Ireland are running a bit behind that, but we would expect them to have most of the over 50s vaccinated by the end of June. And then I think you'll see a return to normal travel patterns. Vaccinations are the way out of this thing. Europe and Ireland has been slow on vaccinations. We're calling today on Tony Holohan and NPHET instead of the daily doses of misery at their press conference to announce daily how many people have been vaccinated. And let's get the vaccination programme accelerated.
You're saying there, though, you know, that you think maybe summer holidays could be back on the card. The Taoiseach and the Taoiseach have warned against planning for such things. Are you being a little bit too optimistic, perhaps? It would look from our public health people, I know you're calling it the daily dose of misery, but they are saying we have to be far more cautious and that summer 2021 may be a write-off.
Look, I mean, our public health people have consistently misled the country. And face masks, meat factories, nursing homes. Frankly, they've gotten it wrong on almost every hand's turn. Our public health people have a duty now to get the vaccination programme rolled out. And instead of, the daily dose of deaths and hospitalizations, it's remarkable they haven't yet decided on a daily basis to announce how many people were vaccinated. We know the GPs across the country are geared up and ready to roll out the vaccination programme to the end of February. And once we catch up with the UK, once we have everybody over 65 or over 50 vaccinated, that accounts for 93% of the deaths from COVID. The rate of deaths collapses, the rate of hospitalizations collapse, and the rate of COVID collapses. Vaccinations are the way forward, not these repeated lockdowns, which have repeatedly failed.
So you're saying you see no reason once those most vulnerable cohorts have been vaccinated to keep us close. You do have an ad running at the moment, Vax and Go. Will we see vaccine passports, do you think, being brought in?
I think it's unlikely, Ciara, only because I think the rate of vaccination will accelerate quite dramatically through, I think, February, March, April, May and June, not just in Ireland, but across Europe. You'll have the Johnson & Johnson vaccine approved, Novartis approved. There will be wide-scale availability of vaccines. And the question is, how fast can you get them into people's arms? And that's where we worry about NPHET and the HSE. They'll mismanage this as they'd mismanage most of the rest of this crisis.
Hang on, I have to challenge you on that. The reason that we're slow on vaccines isn't down to NPHET or the HSE. It's because we have a problem with supply. We have had no difficulty delivering the vaccines as we got them.
It's actually not true, Ciara. We're running 50% behind Denmark in terms of vaccinations with a similar population and similar deliveries. We know already of cases where the HSE has mislaid vaccines or forgot to plug the fridge in and vaccines have spoiled. Now,
tiny number, insignificant.
These are reasonably small issues, but the challenge here is going to be supply will get fixed through February, March and April. And the question is, are we going to be geared up properly to get them into people's arms? Is the HSE going to work? Are we going to be working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5? Or are we going to be doing 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night?
The HSE said they are. Tony Holohan has criticised your Vax and Go ad. What do you say to that?
I wouldn't pay too much attention to being criticised by Tony Holohan. Someone who's who's already misadvised the country on face masks, on releasing people into nursing homes, meat factories, and their latest bogey man last week.
Some of that is a little harsh, in fairness.
It may be harsh, but we deserve harsh treatment. I'm fed up listening to NPHET being eulogised on RTE. NPHET have repeatedly mismanaged this crisis. That's why we're in our third lockdown at the moment.
Let's talk about
challenge for NPHET. Sorry, go ahead.
The new travel restrictions that were tightened up there last week, Michael. Hotel quarantine for all those. With a negative hotel monitored quarantine for all those with a negative PCR. And what is that welcome?
No, it's nonsense. It's a PR stunt. There is no hotel quarantine. The challenge and why I really have a bugbear with Tony Holohan and NPHET is the continued misadvice about international travel. The vast majority of COVID cases that have come from international travel have come across the border with Northern Ireland. The 4 counties in Ireland with the highest rate of COVID are the border counties. It's not NPHET COVID being imported on non-existent flights at Dublin Airport. It's coming across the border with Northern Ireland. And yet their solution is hotel quarantines. Hang on a second here. Let me deal with the facts. We've been on to the government, the Department of Transport, Eamon Ryan. They cannot explain how the quarantine works. They don't know how you get people from the airport to the hotel. They don't know what hotels they're supposed to stay in. They can't tell you who's paying for it. There is not a hotel quarantine in Ireland. There's just a PR release by this government that is
Well, in fairness,
completely
they did say
ineffective and
some
defective.
of the logistics. Micheál Martin said some of the logistics has to be worked out, and would we bear with them? And you're right.
You
I'll
can't have
give
a
it to you. I'll give it
quarantine
to you about
if
the border
some of the
counties.
logistics have to be
But
worked out.
if air traffic hadn't collapsed, we would have imported more cases. There's no question that if people were coming left, right, and centre in on planes, that would have been an issue too. So, is there
False.
not
That's simply incorrect. Look, since we returned to flying on the 1st of July last year, we've had everybody, and these are on short 1 hour flights. We've had people wearing face masks. We've had people observing all the HSE protocols. Air travel has not been the cause. Admittedly, it was because of the original spread from China. But with proper preventative measures in place. I mean, the issue here in Ireland is that the track and tracing has fallen down. There is no track and tracing. The personal locators, which we always objected to, have completely fallen down because there was no follow-up. Every measure rolled out by NEFIT and the HSE has been a failure. And this hotel quarantine, which doesn't actually exist at all, it's just a press release, would be equally unsuccessful when people have free movement across the border with Northern Ireland.
Let me ask you, because today you may be aware that there is a new campaign being launched called We Could Be Zero. The Zero Coveteers are launching a campaign to seal our borders and to drive down cases here. What do you say to that?
Complete and utter idiocy. You can't seal our borders. We live in the European Union, free movement. What do you do, for example, with the freight drivers, the lorry drivers who bring our food in and across on a daily basis? This is not New Zealand. And these idiots who are out looking for zero COVID should shut up and stop putting forward plans that are doomed to fail. The key issue here is what you do when vaccinations roll out. Once we've vaccinated, for example, 50% of the population, if some child at the age of 10 or 14 gets COVID, frankly, he runs very little risk, or he or she runs very little risk of getting sick, being hospitalized or dying. But once the vaccine program begins to accelerate and roll out, you cannot have any zero. You don't need a zero COVID strategy. Look what happened in Australia yesterday. One of these quarantine hotels had a COVID case, so they locked down Perth again. The problem with a zero vaccine strategy is it doesn't work, and you keep going into repeated lockdowns because you'll keep having tiny numbers of cases. If you have widespread vaccination in the population, you don't need zero COVID. And zero COVID has never been a plan that has actually been credible or effective.
A lot of people would say that you would say that because you represent the aviation industry. And in fairness, the aviation industry is on its knees. Just with regard to things like regional airports, I mean, Cork, Shannon, their footfall has utterly collapsed. Are they in jeopardy? Are we looking at a situation where we'll have a super airport in Dublin and regional airports will close?
I think you already have a super airport in Dublin. You know, the problem is once they opened up all the motorways to the M50 10 years ago, Dublin has continued to dominate the industry. But Cork will reopen, Shannon will reopen, but only when half our population has been vaccinated, and that needs to take place on a daily basis. Tony Holohan and NEFIT, instead of terrifying everybody with hospitalizations and case numbers, should be announcing the daily number of vaccines. Then international travel will return. Long haul will take longer, but people will be going, Irish people and families will be booking and going abroad to Portugal, Spain, Greece and Italy this summer. Having successfully vaccinated, they can look forward to a better future.
You're advertising and you're saying people are booking in their droves. What if it doesn't happen? What's going to happen? Will those people get refunds if those flights are cancelled again as they were last year?
They'll get vouchers and refunds, and they have a choice of whether they want to use either.
Okay, so that's not going to be a difficulty for them.
In fact, and all the bookies we're taking at the moment, Cara, have a zero booking fee. You can change the booking not once but twice.